Welcome to a journey back in time. Today we explore the cataclysm that reshaped the world. The Great War, a conflict of unprecedented scale and tragedy. Before the storm, there was the Belle Époque, an era of elegance and rapid industrial progress. Cities like Paris and London thrived in a golden age of peace. But beneath the surface, an arms race was accelerating. Empires expanded their reach, and a complex web of alliances began to tighten across the European continent. In June 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, arrived in Sarajevo. He was a middle-aged man in a formal military uniform. The Archduke and his wife moved through the sunlit streets of Sarajevo in an ornate carriage, waving to the crowds unaware of the lurking danger. Political tension in the Balkans had reached a boiling point. Nationalist fervor and imperial ambitions were about to collide in a single, violent moment. The assassination of the Archduke acted as the spark. In an instant, the precarious peace of Europe was shattered, replaced by chaotic, dark uncertainty. As the July crisis unfolded, telegrams flew between capitals. Monarchs and diplomats tried to navigate the escalating threats, but the momentum toward war was unstoppable. The Great War, a global catastrophe. What began as a regional dispute soon engulfed the world's most powerful nations in a total conflict. The Triple Entente, comprising Britain, France, and Russia, mobilized their forces. Their alliance formed a defensive perimeter across the western and eastern borders. Opposing them was the Triple Alliance, the Central Powers. Led by Germany and Austria-Hungary, they prepared for a fight on two fronts. Kaiser Wilhelm II, the German emperor, stood over his war maps. He was determined to assert German dominance, regardless of the cost to peace. Massive steam trains filled with soldiers departed from Berlin and Paris. The air was thick with the smell of coal smoke and patriotic fervor. The German Schlieffen Plan was set in motion. A bold red arrow swept through neutral Belgium, aiming to knock France out of the war quickly. As German troops marched forward, Belgian civilians were forced to flee. The reality of war began to set in for those in the path of invasion. Heavy siege guns opened fire on Belgian fortresses. The sheer power of modern artillery was a terrifying revelation to all who witnessed it. The war of movement soon died. Soldiers began to dig in, creating a vast network of trenches that would define the conflict for years. The race to the sea followed as both sides tried to outflank each other. Eventually, a solid line of trenches stretched from Switzerland to the coast. A young British soldier stared blankly at the muddy parapet. Exhausted and covered in filth, he represented the millions trapped in this static nightmare. Conditions in the trenches were horrific. Mud and stagnant water were constant companions, and diseased rats scurried through the cramped, damp spaces. In a dark dugout, a German soldier shared a meager ration with a comrade. Moments of humanity persisted, even in the depths of the conflict. Between the opposing lines lay no man's land, a desolate wasteland of barbed wire, shattered trees, and water-filled shell craters. Night raids were common. Under the cover of darkness, machine guns would spit fire, their rhythmic flashes illuminating the scarred landscape. When the whistle blew for an assault, the fear was palpable. A soldier fixed his bayonet, his hands trembling as he prepared to go over the top. New horrors were introduced, like poison gas. A terrifying yellow-green cloud would creep over the trenches, silent and deadly like a ghost. Soldiers struggled to put on primitive gas masks. The fear of suffocation was a constant psychological burden for everyone on the front lines. Behind the lines, nurses worked tirelessly in makeshift hospitals. They provided not just medical care, but a final touch of compassion for the wounded. Major battles like Verdun became symbols of attrition. The scale of loss was staggering, as hundreds of thousands fell for mere yards of ground. At the Somme, heavy rain turned the battlefield into a sea of liquid mud. The charcoal sketches reflect the grim, drowned reality of the infantry. In 1916, a new invention appeared, the tank. The British Mark I emerged from the fog like a mechanical monster, crushing all obstacles. The war also raged at sea. German U-boats lurked beneath the waves, threatening the vital supply lines of the Allied powers. The sinking of the Lusitania brought the horrors of the naval war to the public eye. Civilians were now targets in this total war. US President Woodrow Wilson, initially hesitant, finally signed the declaration of war. The United States would bring its vast resources to the Allied cause. Massive American transport ships arrived in France. Thousands of fresh, enthusiastic troops began to pour onto the continent, tipping the balance of power. The arrival of the Americans provided a much-needed boost to Allied morale. Soldiers from different nations shook hands, united by a common goal. The contrast was striking. The fresh-faced American doughboys stood alongside weary British and French veterans who had endured years of combat. In the east, the Russian front collapsed as the Bolshevik Revolution took hold. Russia exited the war, leaving Germany to focus all its power on the west. Germany launched one last spring offensive. Desperate arrows on the map showed their final attempt to break the Allied lines before American strength peaked. But the Allied forces held firm and then counterattacked. They broke through the Hindenburg Line, and the momentum of the war shifted decisively. In November 1918, representatives met in a lone train carriage in the misty forest of Compiègne to discuss the terms of an armistice. The armistice was signed, bringing an end to the fighting. The pen strokes were deliberate and final, marking the conclusion of the carnage. Church bells rang out across London and Paris. Crowds gathered in the streets, celebrating the end of the war that was supposed to end all wars. Peace was formalized at the Palace of Versailles. In the Grand Hall of Mirrors, world leaders debated the new borders of a fractured world. New nations were born from the ruins of empires. Poland, Czechoslovakia, and others appeared on the map, signaling a new era of national identity. The League of Nations was established to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. But the foundations of this new peace were already fracturing. Today, war memorials across the globe stand as a testament to the lives lost. They serve as a somber reminder of the cost of conflict. Studying this war is vital. It helps us understand the roots of modern conflict, the importance of international law, and the sanctity of human rights. As we remember the fallen, let these red poppies remind us of the fragility of peace and the resilience of the human spirit. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Join us next time as we uncover more history.